I was reading online that perhaps there's a red hue to the screen that are being seen in Korea by the Samsung Galaxy S8. Is that a concern? I mean, how much are we pitting, Ben, on the Galaxy S8, given the debacle that was the exploding Note 7?
Yeah, I think that that there's obviously a lot riding on it, right? I think, Samsung has, to some degree, a reputation to repair. As we were talking about, we did some research. We collaborated with SurveyMonkey to do this really sort of quick study just to see. And luckily, the Note 7 issues didn't seem to be a barrier. Over 60% of consumers said that was not something that was a deterrent for them to consider the S8 and the Samsung phone. So I think that's really good news. And among existing Samsung owners, it was even higher. It was like 65%. So I don't think that that's perhaps in the mind of a consumer, and particularly a loyal Samsung owner, as big of a deal as people made it out to be. I think the media is being a little bit more cautious, than they were in years past in their reviews, just to make sure, say, hey, this happened, and so I think they don't want to set it too glowing, but it really is a good device.
They don't want to say, we loved this phone, oh, by the way,
because they said that about 7.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that they're playing their cards, but the reviews have been really good. I mean, I don't think anybody said it's bad, and people have been raving about the screen because, all of a sudden you get all this great new screen, size in a smaller form factor, which I think people will appreciate. So I don't think that the Note issues are as bad as people think, but I also think Samsung needs to now start ramping up their marketing to continue to increase that demand, both against their base and new customers as well.
Have you been a media person cautious to get too excited about the Galaxy S8?
I think I haven't been excited about a device in a lot, ever. Probably ever. Certainly not a Samsung phone. I think it's interesting, Google needs this to work, right? Android needs this to work. But I think that, the problems with the Note 7 isn't just among Android users. I mean, I think that it happens at a time when we've seen the replacement cycle, the refresh cycle, lengthening. Yeah. People are replacing phones much more slowly, so that Samsung got a little bit of a pass just because the consumer dynamics are somewhat changed. The people with older Samsung phones might not have been updated as quickly as they might have been in years past. And so they are actually able to get a chance to kind of skip a cycle here, or at least half of a cycle with one of their devices. And they've got a shot here to really maintain their leadership in terms of sales.
And certainly ahead of the game when it comes to the iPhone 8. We were discussing with Mark Gurman, our gadgets guru here, and he was sort of saying what we're expecting from the iPhone 8, and a lot of it's very similar to what we got given in the S8, and indeed by Xiaomi as well, the Chinese manufacturer, which too has come out with curved screens and small bezels. Yeah,
and I think, again, as in this research, we sort of looked at what drivers are the things that consumers are mostly interested. We tested things like Bixby and others, and that didn't really test very high, but screen and camera were still the highest purchase drivers. So I think this is signaling an overall design trend that we're going to see. We're going to see the move toward bezel-less designs probably universally across all smartphone OEMs, and that'll start more in the high end, and I think that'll trickle down to the low end. But again, the value is there for consumers who want as big a screen as possible in the smallest form factor, and for that reason, this design trend I think is going to continue.
What do we see, therefore, in terms of how important this is to Samsung's bottom line as well, Cory? What are you looking out for in terms of, we've got Korea getting excited about it, they're purchasing a lot. When do we start to know whether this product is actually doing well in the US?
We'll know pretty quickly here, but I also think it's important for so many of the suppliers. You've got companies like Broadcom or integrated device technology companies that are supplying into this, and we're going to see those kind of results actually may come before we even see results from Samsung, because they'll get the pre-order. So we're going to start to see those stocks, which have been down a little bit since the release of this phone. We'll start to get a sense that when we see their quarters the reports for the quarter that's underway currently.
And of course, interestingly, the curved screen and the demand for that, well, Samsung seems to lead the way in actually being the supplier for an awful lot of these things. It sort of wins out by everyone copying it.
It's hot.
Yeah, and I think, to Cory's point, the supplier points that go in, and I think especially for Qualcomm as well, for somebody where we're seeing tensions start to rise between Apple and Qualcomm, and obviously Qualcomm gets benefit from vendors who sell at very high ASPs, and Samsung is the only one to do that. So it really benefits Qualcomm to have a win here, especially if they start to lose more of Apple's business going forward. But again, I think, one of the things that we included in the study was just who's looking to upgrade over the next 3 to 6 months, and what we found was that 36% of of consumers who plan to upgrade in the next 6 months were very interested in the S8. So I think that bodes well.
But will they hold out for the iPhone 8?
Well, I think again, most of those people were existing Android customers, not necessarily iPhone customers. iPhone's a very loyal bunch, as are Samsung.
And just to that point, I mean, when we know that historically, when people leave Android or leave Samsung or whatever Android phone they're on and go to Apple, they stay with Apple. So the retention rate is very high when it comes to Apple. And as far as it relates to Qualcomm, what I just say about that is that surely Qualcomm wants this phone to be a success. They want every phone to be a success. But Qualcomm's going to win. Qualcomm's in the competitors' phones as well. So they're always going to benefit from whoever wins.
Yeah.
And so, what do we expect, therefore, Ben, in terms of going forward? Is it going to all be Samsung S8? Do you think it'll meet its expectations?
Yeah, I think the thing that we watch is just what happens over the first 60 days, right? So as we watch the next month, we'll see. From that benchmark, you can compare that to how did it do with prior years. My expectations is that I do think consumers will really appreciate the design trend that they're changing to. So I think we'll see a bigger bump, but I expect it to perform similar as S lines in previous years.